Hello, English learners. I'm Emma, and you're listening to the podcast that makes fluency achievable for everyone. And today's episode is all about improving your English listening and writing skills through real-life stories. If you're looking to enhance your listening abilities and expand your vocabulary, you're in the right place. By the end of this episode, you'll feel more confident listening to everyday English conversations. Before we begin, I have a couple of questions for you. How often do you practice your English listening skills? Do you find it difficult to understand native speakers when they talk quickly? Let me know in the comments or think about it as we go along. Now, let's dive in. In today's episode, I'll share a story from my own life that helped me improve my English skills. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to visit a small town in the countryside. I was staying at a cozy little guest house run by a lovely couple, Sarah and David. They were very friendly and we quickly became friends. One morning over breakfast, David shared a funny story about his childhood. He told me how when he was younger, he tried to build a treehouse but it ended up falling apart because he didn't use the right tools. He laughed at how embarrassed he felt when his friends saw the broken treehouse. But he said it taught him a valuable lesson. Always ask for help when you don't know how to do something. That story taught me something important about language and communication. It wasn't just about the words David used. It was about how he told the story. His tone, the way he paused for effect, and the expressions he used made the story come alive. When we learn English, it's not only about understanding the words but also about understanding the emotions behind them. Listening to stories like David's will help you not only understand English, but also use it in a more natural way. Let me share another story from my friend Mark. Mark is a journalist, and one day he told me about a challenging interview he had with a famous author. He had prepared a lot of questions, but during the interview, the author started telling personal stories about her travels and experiences. Mark said he was so caught up in listening to her fascinating stories that he forgot some of his prepared questions. However, by the end of the interview, he realized he had learned so much more than he expected because he had listened closely and asked follow-up questions based on her stories. This taught Mark a valuable lesson in conversation. Sometimes the best way to learn is by truly listening to others, even if it means going off script. These stories aren't just for entertainment. They are examples of how you can improve your raw listening skills by paying attention to the way people speak. It's not just about vocabulary or grammar, it's about understanding the flow of the conversation and how emotions are expressed through language. Now, let's take a moment to talk about how you can practice your English listening skills more effectively. One great way to improve is by listening to real-life stories, just like the ones I've shared today. You can find these kinds of stories in podcasts, interviews, or even when chatting with friends. The more you listen to natural conversations, the better you'll understand the rhythms and patterns of spoken English. So, I encourage you to press the like button if you're enjoying this episode. It helps us know that you're finding these lessons useful. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. We upload new videos regularly to help you improve your English every day. One afternoon, I visited my neighbor, Mr. Thomas. He's a retired firefighter and always has great stories to tell. We sat in his garden drinking tea, and he told me about a time when he had to rescue a family from a burning house. He said it was one of the most difficult days of his life, but also the most meaningful. The fire was strong and smoke-filled the house quickly. He and his team worked together to bring everyone out safely. As he spoke, I noticed how clearly he described the situation. He used simple but powerful words, and he paused at the right times to make the story more real. For example, instead of saying, "It was dangerous," he said, "We couldn't see anything, but we kept going because we knew someone needed help." That sentence made me feel like I was there with him. This is a great example of how storytelling can make your English more interesting. When you tell a story, think about what the listener might feel. Use clear, simple words and describe what you saw, heard, or felt. This will help your writing and speaking sound more natural. Another good story comes from my friend Rachel. She runs a small bakery near my house. One day she told me how she started her business. Years ago, she used to bake bread and cakes for her husband and children. Everyone loved her cooking, and her friends encouraged her to start selling it. She was nervous at first because she didn't know anything about business. But she took a small step. She started selling bread at a local market every weekend. The first few months were hard. Sometimes no one came to her stall. Sometimes people complained about the prices. But Rachel didn't give up. She kept listening to her customers and made small changes. Now her bakery is very popular. She even teaches baking classes to other women in the community. Rachel's story shows us that learning and growth take time. Just like learning English, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going, keep trying, and learn from your mistakes. And when you listen to someone's story, you also learn how they use English in real life. So, while you're listening today, try to notice the structure of these stories. How does the person begin the story? How do they move from one part to the next? What kind of words do they use to describe feelings or events? I want you to think about a story from your own life. Maybe it was your first day at work, or a time you helped someone, or maybe a time when you learned something new. Try writing that story in English. Don't worry about mistakes. Just focus on telling it clearly, using the kind of language you're hearing here. Let's hear one more story. This one is from a man named Kareem. Kareem works at a community center, helping people who have just moved to the city. He once told me about a man who came to him for help finding a job. The man didn't speak much English, and he felt shy. But every day he came to the center to learn new words. He practiced filling out job applications and learned how to answer interview questions. After a few weeks, he applied for a job as a cleaner at a local office. He didn't get the job the first time, but he didn't give up. He kept practicing. On his third try, he got the job. Kareem said the man was so happy that he cried. Not because it was a big job, but because it gave him hope and confidence. This is the power of learning, and this is why you're here. Listening, improving, growing. Keep going. You're doing better than you think. Now, I want to tell you a longer story that comes from someone I met last year. His name is Daniel. Daniel is a man in his 40s, and he works as a bus driver. He lives in a small town, not far from the city. He's a quiet person, but once you get to know him, you'll find that he's full of wisdom and kindness. He once told me a story that really stayed with me. It's a great example of how even simple life situations can teach us something important, and also how people speak naturally in English. Daniel said that when he first started working as a bus driver, he felt nervous. He had passed all the driving tests, but he wasn't sure if he could handle the pressure of having passengers, keeping time, and driving in heavy traffic. On his first day, something unexpected happened. A woman with 2 children got on the bus. She was carrying many bags, and she looked very tired. As she walked to her seat, one of her bags tore open, and all her things fell onto the floor. Daniel could have just waited, but instead he stopped the bus, left his seat, and helped her pick everything up. He also gave her a small plastic bag from the front of the bus to help her carry the items. The woman looked surprised and said, "Thank you so much. You're the first person who's helped me today." She smiled, and the children waved at him. That small moment gave Daniel confidence. He said, "After that day, I understood something. It's not just about driving. It's about being kind to people, even in small ways. Over the next few months, Daniel made it a habit to greet every passenger with a smile and a kind word. If someone looked confused about which stop to get off at, he would take a moment to explain. If someone seemed sad, he would say something cheerful. One rainy day, an old man got on the bus. He was wet and cold and he looked a bit lost. Daniel asked him if he needed help. The man explained that he had missed his usual bus and didn't know how to get to the hospital where his wife was staying. Daniel gently explained which stop he needed and offered to let him sit close to the front so he could remind him when it was time to get off. The man thanked him and said, "Young, stories like this show us something very real. We don't need big moments or exciting events to learn or grow. Even regular days, with simple acts of kindness, can teach us about life and about using English in a natural way." The way Daniel told the story was calm and clear. He didn't use big or difficult words. He just explained what happened, what people said, and how he felt. That's the kind of storytelling that helps you improve both listening and writing. Now I want you to think. Have you ever had a simple but meaningful day like Daniel did? Maybe you helped someone in your neighborhood. Maybe you spoke kindly to a stranger. These are great moments to write about. Try writing a short paragraph about one of those days. Focus on what happened, how people reacted, and how you felt. Don't try to make it perfect. Just make it real. Let's move on to another story. This one comes from a woman named Emily. Emily is a nurse. She works in a health clinic in a busy area of the city. She told me about her first year on the job. She said it was very stressful. Every day she had to care for many people, and some of them were very sick. She often worried she might make a mistake. But she kept going because she knew that her job was important. One afternoon, a woman came to the clinic with her little boy. The boy had a high fever and was crying. The mother didn't speak much English, and she looked very worried. Emily calmly helped the child, gave him medicine, and explained to the mother slowly and clearly how to take care of him at home. She even wrote down the instructions on a piece of paper so the mother could remember. The next week, the mother came back just to say thank you. The boy was healthy again, and the mother brought a small thank you card. Emily said that moment reminded her why she chose to become a nurse. It was not just about medical work. It was about making people feel safe and understood. She said, "Kind words and a calm voice can help people more than we realize." That story also teaches us about communication. When we speak clearly and with care, people understand better, even if they don't speak English very well. And when we listen carefully, we learn more than just words. We learn feelings, thoughts, and experiences. So now, ask yourself, what is something you've done for someone that made them smile? Or what is something someone did for you that helped you during a difficult day? These moments, even if they seem small, are full of learning opportunities. Write about them. Speak about them. Share them. This is how your English becomes more natural, more human, and more connected to real life. Let's take a deep breath together and remember, every small step in your English journey matters. You're not just learning grammar or vocabulary. You're learning how to understand people, how to tell your story, and how to connect with the world. And I'm here with you, every step of the way. Let's continue with another long and helpful story. This one is about a man named Richard. Richard is a builder. He works on homes, helping people repair broken walls, fix roofs, and sometimes build small new houses. Richard didn't always have this job. When he was younger, he worked in a factory packing boxes. He did that job for many years, but one day, the factory closed, and he lost his job. That was a very difficult time for him. Richard told me that after he lost his job, he felt confused. He didn't know what to do next. He had a wife and 2 children, and he needed to earn money. He didn't have many skills at the time, and he had never used a computer. He thought about giving up, but one evening his friend Peter came to visit. Peter worked in construction, and he said, "Why don't you come with me tomorrow? You can help me on the site and see if you like it." The next day, Richard joined Peter. At first, he just carried tools and cleaned up around the area, but slowly he started watching closely. He learned how to mix cement, how to measure wood, and how to place bricks. After a few weeks, Peter let him try some tasks on his own. Richard said it was the first time in months that he felt useful again. He wasn't perfect at first. He made small mistakes, but Peter corrected him kindly and helped him grow. Over time, Richard became very good at his work. He started working full-time with Peter's team. Then, after 3 years, he opened his own small business. He called it Honest Hands Construction. Now he has 3 people working for him, and they get many jobs from people in the area. Richard's business became known not just for good work, but for being on time, polite, and helpful. He told me, "Sometimes it's not about what you already know. It's about your attitude and your effort." Richard also said that one of the things that helped him most was learning how to talk to clients clearly. Many people who hire builders don't know the right words for materials or tools. So Richard always makes sure to explain everything in simple English. He even shows pictures or draws small sketches to help people understand. That way, his clients feel comfortable, and they trust him more. Let me give you an example. One time, Richard was fixing a kitchen for a family. The wife, Sarah, wanted a new countertop, but she wasn't sure what type to choose. Richard showed her samples and explained the pros and cons of each. He said, "This one is strong but expensive. This one is cheaper but needs more care." Sarah appreciated his honesty and chose the one that was best for her family. She later recommended Richard to 5 of her friends. Now let's look at how Richard used English in his job. He didn't use difficult words. He used simple, clear sentences. For example, instead of saying, "This material is structurally sound," he said, "This wood is strong. It will last a long time." That's the kind of English that works well in everyday life. You don't need to sound fancy. You just need to be clear. So what can we learn from Richard's story? First, never give up when life becomes hard. There's always another path if you stay patient and open-minded. Second, don't be afraid to learn something new, even if it takes time. Third, practice speaking clearly and kindly. People will remember how you make them feel, not just the words you use. Let me tell you about another person. Her name is Anna. Anna works at a grocery store. She started working there when she was 20 years old. She didn't have a lot of experience, but she always smiled and treated customers with respect. One day, a man came into the store and asked where he could find cooking oil. Anna smiled and said, "Aisle 4, next to the rice." But the man looked confused. He didn't understand the word aisle. Anna noticed this and quickly changed her sentence. She said, "Please follow me. I'll show you." She walked with the man and pointed to the cooking oil. The man smiled and said, "Thank you. My English is not very good." Anna replied, "That's okay. You're doing great. We all learn step by step." That small conversation helped the man feel more confident, and it helped Anna become more aware of how to speak in a way that others can understand. She later told me, "Now I try to use easier words and speak slowly when I think someone is still learning English." These moments are powerful. They show us how small actions and simple words can make a big difference. Anna didn't need to give a long speech. She just noticed the situation and responded with kindness. That's a skill you can also develop by listening carefully and choosing your words with care. Now think about this. Have you ever helped someone understand something? Maybe you gave directions. Maybe you explained how to do something simple, like cook rice or fix a tap. These are real-life stories that help you build your English in a natural and useful way. Try to write one of these stories in your own words. Keep the language simple. Use words like I went, she said, he asked, I helped. These are the building blocks of good English communication. Let's continue with another long story. This one is about James. James is a father of 3 children. He works as a delivery driver. Every morning he wakes up at 5 a.m. He eats breakfast, checks the delivery list and starts his route. He drives to many houses and offices, dropping off packages. Some days are easy, but other days are full of challenges. One day, James had a flat tire on a country road. He didn't have good mobile signal and no one was around. He looked at the time and saw that he had 10 more deliveries to make before 2 p.m. Instead of getting angry or giving up, James took a deep breath and started changing the tire himself. It was raining and his clothes were wet, but he kept working. After 30 minutes, the new tire was in place. He drove off, and even though he was late, he still delivered all the packages. When he got home that night, he was very tired. But he told his wife, I feel proud. I didn't quit, even when it was hard. James's story teaches us about responsibility. It also teaches us about staying calm during problems. When we speak or write in English, we can also talk about situations like this. It helps us practice past tense, action words, and time phrases. For example, it was raining. I changed the tire. I kept going. These are simple and useful sentence structures for everyday English. And here's another small detail. James also talks to many different people during his day. Some people speak English well, and others are still learning. He always speaks clearly and says things like, your package is here, or please sign here. He doesn't use difficult words because he knows not everyone will understand. This makes communication easier and better for everyone. So remember, you can learn English not only by reading books or listening to lessons. You can also learn by listening to real people's stories. Stories about work, family, helping others, solving problems, and staying strong. These stories are all around you. Just open your ears and your heart, and you'll find them. And when you speak or write, think about sharing your own experiences in this same way. Would you like to hear more? Let's keep going. Let's continue with another story. This one is about a man named George. George works as a mechanic in a small town. His job is to fix cars, motorcycles, and trucks. He started learning about cars when he was very young. His father was also a mechanic, and George spent many hours in the garage with him. He learned how to use tools and fix problems with engines, tires, and brakes. Over time, George became very skilled at his job. He loved working on cars and solving problems. But like many jobs, there were challenges. One day, a woman named Linda came into the garage with her car. The car wasn't starting, and she was worried it might be a serious problem. George took a look at the car and tried to start the engine. After a few moments, he knew what the problem was. The battery had died. He smiled and said, "It's a simple fix. I can replace the battery for you, and your car will be good as new." Linda looked relieved, but she also asked, "How much will it cost?" George explained the price clearly, making sure Linda understood. He said, "The battery will cost around $100, and the labor charge will be another $50. So, the total is $150. Linda nodded and agreed to the repair. She was happy that the problem was simple, and she trusted George because he explained everything in a way that was easy to understand. But here's what makes George's story interesting. A few days later, Linda came back to the garage and she told George that the new battery didn't fix the problem. The car still wouldn't start. George felt bad that she had to come back. So he told her, "Let me check it again for free. We'll find out what's really wrong." After a closer look, George discovered that there was another issue, one that wasn't related to the battery. He quickly fixed the problem and didn't charge Linda anything extra. Linda was so impressed with George's honesty and kindness that she told all of her friends about him. She said, "George is the best mechanic in town. He didn't just take my money and walk away. He really cares about helping people." This story shows how important it is to be honest and clear when talking to others, especially when it comes to money. George used simple, easy English to explain the repair and the cost. He didn't try to confuse Linda with complicated terms. By doing this, he gained her trust, and she became a loyal customer. This brings us to an important point. In every conversation, whether it's about work, family, or something else, being clear and honest is essential. If you're learning English, try to practice using simple, direct sentences. If you explain something clearly, people will understand you better, and they'll trust you more. Now let's talk about another story. This one is about a teacher named Sarah. Sarah is an English teacher at a high school. She loves teaching, and she's very good at helping her students improve their English skills. But teaching isn't always easy. One of Sarah's students, named Tom, was having trouble learning English. He found it hard to remember vocabulary, words, and he often struggled to understand grammar rules. He would look at the board and feel lost. One day, Sarah noticed that Tom was having trouble. After class, she asked him if he was okay. Tom admitted, "I just don't understand how to use these words in sentences. I try to learn, but it feels like I forget everything." Sarah smiled and said, "Don't worry, Tom. Let's find a way that works for you." She suggested that they practice together outside of class. She told him to make flashcards with words and pictures to help him remember. Then she gave him some exercises to practice at home, where he had to use the words and sentences. Over the next few weeks, Tom's English improved. He started to feel more confident. Instead of feeling lost in class, he began to raise his hand and answer questions. Sarah noticed his progress and told him, "You're doing great, Tom. Keep practicing and you'll keep getting better." This moment made Tom realize that learning English wasn't just about studying for exams. It was about finding ways to practice that made sense for him. One thing that helped Tom was the flashcards. Flashcards are a great tool for learning new vocabulary because they help you remember words more easily. You can make your own flashcards at home. On one side, write the English word, and on the other side, write the meaning in your language, or draw a picture. Then, test yourself every day to see how many words you can remember. This method is simple, but it works well for many people. Sarah also helped Tom by using simple English when she explained things. She avoided complicated grammar terms and instead focused on clear, practical examples. For instance, when she explained the difference between the words big and large, she said, "Both words mean the same thing, but we use big for people or things that are not official. Large sounds more formal, like when we describe a big room at a hotel." This made the difference easy to understand. The lesson here is that teaching and learning are not just about following rules or memorizing information. They're about finding what works for you and sticking with it. And whether you're a student or a teacher, always try to use simple, clear language. The more you practice, the better you'll become. Let's move on to another story, this time about a man named Mark. Mark is a chef in a busy restaurant. Every day he prepares delicious meals for customers. He loves cooking, but being a chef is hard work. Mark has to wake up early every morning to get the kitchen ready. He works long hours, often until late at night. But the hardest part of his job isn't the long hours or the hot stove. That's all for today. Remember to practice what you've learned and join me next episode for more English insights.